Welcome to the Invasion of Naboo tutorial. The opening of this level I will cover two variants, so the invasion cutscene skip variant will be first, and then the non-invasion cutscene skip variant will be second. Invasion cutscene skip is a trick that you can do if you have access to 50 Hz or lower in the refresh rate options in your menu. And there's something interesting that we do now to switch between 50 and 60 Hz, and I'll talk about that more when we get into the level. But in order to check if you have that refresh rate, go to video settings and cycle through your refresh rates. And as you switch resolutions repeatedly, you should check the refresh rates on each resolution to find out if you have access to 50 Hz. For example, I only have 50 Hz on some resolutions. Now, if you do, what you're going to want to do is go into video settings on controller and go into video settings and set your refresh rate to 50 Hz. Now you're going to change your refresh rate back to 60 Hz, and instead of hitting accept, you're just going to unpause the game with whatever your pause button is. It'll probably just be the start button. So as the level starts, do a slash with both players to get a little bit of extra distance at the beginning. And as you walk forward, try to kill this pack of droids. And once you arrive at the tree, you're going to turn around with whoever is getting at the tree. Ideally, this is whoever is on controller. Now, what I like to do is I press down, and then I'll hold up on the D-pad. Additionally, if you are on keyboard, you can just hold W to try and make them backflip directly into the tree. Now, the important part here is what you're doing with the other player. There's a couple things you can do. You can stand in this position, and you'll be able to backflip up the tree if you're in the precise pixel, or this position. However, what's recommended is to do this walking method where you walk back and forth between the two pixels, and it'll allow you to get a perfect camera angle to backflip up every time. This is what anyone who's new to the game should definitely do, as it is the easiest and tends to be the fastest as well. Now, once you're on top of the tree, you're able to clip through. However, it won't work on 50 Hz. So the fastest way to get up to 60 Hz is to Alt-Tab out of the game and then to Alt-Tab back in. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. My preferred method is to press Alt-Tab. While holding Alt, I'll press Shift-Tab to return back into the window that I previously was in. One other option is, if you only have 3 or 4 windows open, you can just press Alt-Tab, keep holding Alt, and hit Tab 3 or 4 more times. That'll also return you to the game, but obviously that's a little slower and less consistent because you might not have the same amount of windows open every time. Now, once you're tabbed back into the game, you should be on 60 Hz. You want to be not moving in order to clip through the tree, and for the most part, not too far forward. If you satisfy those two conditions, you should be able to get through the tree. So you're just going to force the tree with player 2, and once you see player 1 go underground, you're going to start moving forward. Once you're through the ground, you want to have player 2 follow you as you walk under the ground forward. You can easily get an auto dropout here, but if player 2 is on controller or whoever is not on the tree is on controller, you do not want to get an auto dropout, or you will not be able to call them back in on controller for the rest of the level. So in order to avoid that, you're just going to drop out manually. Now, it's important to take a line on the left here, staying on the left side of this tank, but definitely do not go too far left or you will fall out of bounds. It's also important not to be too high or you can still hit the cutscene. And once you are at the stairs, you can start jumping up again and go ahead and hit the transition to room 2. Now, if you can't do invasion cutscene skip, all you're going to do is you're going to do a full 1P2C here for the entire room. One player will force the droids while the other forces the tree. You'll walk forward, one player will force the droids again, and the other will force the tank 3 times. This is a very RNG dependent section, so you really just have to rely on getting good droid spawns. Once you're through the tank, you can jump into the cutscene and switch player 1 to Jar Jar when it ends. Jar Jar will enter room 2, and what you want to do here is stop with Jar Jar for a quick second, and as soon as the platform is forceable, you'll start forcing it with player 2. Now, this is only required if you do not do invasion cutscene skip, as there's no extra character management. However, if you do invasion cutscene skip, you will be slowed down a little bit by the character management at the beginning, in which case you're just going to swap player 1 to Jar Jar, go to the right, and you're going to force the platform as Jar Jar jumps onto it, dropping out once Jar Jar is in the air and the platform is fully forced. Now, after this, you're going to do the first Jar Jar jump. This is a Jar Jar jump that everyone needs to be going for because it saves a lot of time and it's very easy. You're just going to hold right, and as you're holding right, you need to space a jump. The important thing about this jump is that you get a little jump off this rock here before the pillar, because if you do, you'll get a little bit more height and it'll allow you to land on the pillar later, making it fall a little bit slower. Now if you get a good jump, you should get over to the other side. However, sometimes you just won't get a good enough jump, and instead of getting over to the other side, you will hit the pillar and it will fall instead. If this happens, just wait for it to fall and jump straight up. In the event that it does not work, and you don't even make it across, all you have to do is do this backup jump. It is pretty difficult to do at first, but it can take some adjusting and you can definitely get more consistent with it. But the backup, if you do miss it and you don't want to do this jump, is you can 1PTC it or just switch to a Jedi and jump up to this lever, force the lever, and switch back to Jar Jar as you go on to the next section. Now in the waterfall section, there are 2 jumps that both save around a second. They are pretty hard to do though, and they're not recommended at a lower level. First jump involves jumping from around right here on this ledge. If you're too close to the right, you won't get a jump, and if you get an edge jump, you're not going to get enough height. So you want to try and get a jump, not a complete edge jump, but just while you're still on the ground. Now for this next jump, this is probably the hardest of the Jar Jar jumps. You want to go into this corner. There's little pixel on the left that you need to avoid. When you're in the corner, you want to move a little bit to the left, and you're going to hold down and get the best edge jump that you can. If you do it too early, you're going to hit your head, and if you do it too late, you're not going to get a jump, so this is why this jump is so precise. But all you have to do is you hold down for the first jump and right for the second jump, and you should make it across. Now in the event that you miss this jump and you just fall down, the fastest method to back it up is to call player 2 and force the platform over, have Jar Jar jump onto that platform, and drop out player 2. Alternatively, if you don't want to go for this jump, you are just going to turn around with Jar Jar and switch to a Jedi, force the platform, usually you'll have to force a droid beforehand, and just jump all the way into the next room. Now this room has a couple variants in the opening. The first variant is log jump. This is another 1 second time save that is a little tricky to do, but if you just hold right as you enter the room, tap forward a few times, and you just hold right on Jar Jar for the entire duration of the jump until you are at the very end, then you hold forward and right to get onto the ledge, and you need a pretty well-spaced jump for this to work. On controller, it's a little bit easier to curve around, but holding right for the most part is what you want to do. If you miss log jump, the fastest backup is to call in player 2 and force the bridge while you are waiting for the respawn with Jar Jar, and then go up the bridge, dropping out player 2 on your way. However, if you don't want to do this, you can do something called a Jar Jar push, where you can push Jar Jar forward to the right towards the log as you're walking in with your lightsaber. You don't have to do it very much, just a little bit of a push is usually all that saves time. You're going to force the log and then switch to Jar Jar to jump over it. In this room, you want to keep a close line on the left and make your way towards the power-up. When you land on the power-up, you need to do the specific movement that allows you to get a buffered jump when you hit down in the water here. One important thing about this level is that walking in water is extremely slow compared to jumping when you're in water, so you always want to be jumping if you are going through the water. Once you get up here on this rock, you are just going to go to the right, stand on this pillar, and end the level by walking forward into the next room and just holding forward and jumping. Again, you do not want to be walking into the water, you want to be spamming jumps or spacing jumps the whole time. That's about it for Invasion.